Alright, what's going on, guys? So, over the past few weeks, we've been going through the Elden Ring trailer, trying to break down everything we possibly can. And it seems like every time we watch it, we figure out some new little hint, or something that we didn't notice before. So today I've got a list of new details that we've discovered in the trailer that we're going to go through right now. But as always, before we get started, I know only a small percentage of you guys that watch my content are actually subscribed. So if you don't mind, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest Elden Ring news and for some other cool Souls videos that I think you'll enjoy. Now let's get into the details. So this video is going to be a continuation of the last breakdown videos we've done, so if you haven't seen those, I highly recommend checking those out. But the first thing I want to talk about today is something that's been covered quite a bit on other channels that I personally missed, and that is the locations that which we can spirit summon at and possibly summon other tarnished at. So if you take a look at this clip here, you can see that the cube that the player is holding is the catalyst by which we can spirit summon. And if you look off to the right, you'll notice that the spirits seem to come out of this obelisk. And in the interviews with Miyazaki, he did say that the spirit summoning is going to be confined to certain areas. Now we do know that these obelisks are going to be those areas, because if we take a look at this other boss fight in the trailer, we can actually see another obelisk off to the side, emanating that same blue energy that we see on the spirits. But when the player summons on the right, we can see that that energy is gone. And when they're playing solo on the left, it still is charged with that energy. So then that begs the question of how many spirits can you summon at a time? And are certain spirits going to require more energy than others? For that, we don't know. We're just going to have to wait and hear more details later on. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the maiden. There's been a big argument going on in the community as to whether she has red hair or blonde hair. And I know that sounds like a very small, tiny detail that doesn't matter, but we've had several leaks in the past that suggested that faction alignment is going to be associated by hair color among the NPCs. Now, when I took this picture up into 4K and zoomed in, you still really can't tell. There's definitely not enough proof to say that this is red hair, but something interesting to me was the little thing she has fastening her cloak together on her neck really resembles an Old Norse bracelet in my opinion. And I thought that was kind of cool. But moving on from that, if you've been keeping up with the videos and the breakdowns so far, then you know that something I've been really trying to figure out is what this big stone face is. Every time I looked at it, I would get this sense of deja vu. And I knew I had seen something very similar to it before. Well, I finally figured that out. If you'll remember back to long ago when we got this concept art of a character holding a coiled sword from Dark Souls, if you look at it closely, there's actually a lot of similarities between these two. For example, if you look at the face that's on the cloak of skin that the character is wearing, you can see that the eyes are starting to tilt downwards almost in the way that the stone face is. And the way the skin is frilled on the cloak is almost identical to the pattern of the frills on the stone face. And then if you look at the way the skin falls beneath the cloak, it does almost resemble the same pattern as the tendrils. Now it is important to note that this is very early concept art, so we don't need to read into it too much. However, I did think this was very interesting, so we'll move on to the next one. Now the next detail is pretty small, but you can see that the knight covered in the red thorns that's fighting the player character later on in the trailer actually drops their sword, and we can see the player wielding it at the end. So that leads me to believe that this is going to be a common enemy, at least in the Lion Castle part. So for the next detail, I want to talk about the painting of the king, and I'm going to drop a potential spoiler warning here because I don't know what the actual game is going to hold. Now if you watch the other breakdowns, you know that we covered this painting of the king almost to nauseam, and if you've been keeping up with Elden Ring leaks for a long time, you know this isn't the first time we've seen him. One of the first major leaks we got for Elden Ring was this concept art. And if you look at the faces, we know that this giant snake monster in the concept art is this king. But the strangeness doesn't stop there. If you look closely at the painting on the left, you can see the snake tails wrapping around the king's arm, and many tiny snakes crawling up from the bottom. So it's clear that the snake monster is some type of other form of this king. But it goes even deeper. On the day the trailer dropped, when I went back through the trailer to try to get a screenshot of this painting, I came across something kind of weird. In the official trailer, the snakes are edited out of the painting. The picture on the left is from the official Elden Ring website and is a direct screen capture of in-game footage. So we know that this edit is intentional, and it's highly likely that the trailer was made after this official screen capture was taken. So I think the most likely scenario was that they know we saw that leaked concept art a long time ago and are trying to hide this. And there's something else that communicates this to me. The snakes aren't the only thing that are edited out. You'll notice on the sword the red jewels are also edited out, and that entire side of the arm is darkened, and naturally our eyes are drawn to the color red. So this is a good tactic to get us not to focus on that arm. Now I wanted to make sure that this wasn't just a fluke, and I went through all the other official screen caps and cross-referenced cross-referenced them side by side with the trailer, and I found that this was the only edit. All other official screen caps were exactly the same as their trailer counterparts. So now let's get into my speculation side. So after I discovered this, I tried to share it around on YouTube, on Reddit, on Twitter, and nobody really cared. Everybody kept dismissing this as concept art changed later in the game. But let me stress this is not concept art. The picture of the snake monster is concept art, but this is an official screen capture of in-game footage in the current build of the game. Now, editing trailers is no new concept. Companies do it all the time to avoid somebody figuring out spoilers of movies, of TV shows, of even video games. So I'm gonna make a bold claim here, and please quote me on this. I think this king, at least in the snake form, is gonna be the final boss of the game. Or at least a very major boss. It's just too fishy. So let's think about this for a minute. We know that the children of the queen were the ones that got the shards, so that implies that there had to be a king involved. And if the queen was already eternal before having this power, then naturally the king would want power on par with his children at least. And we know that the power of the runes is what distorted the demigods into these eldritch monsters, but at least they still have some semblance of humanity. And I know I said earlier I'm not going to read into early concept art, but I'm going to read into this early concept art. If we look at this character who we know is a demigod, we saw him in the 2019 trailer fastening the arms onto himself, so it was his choice to become this distorted. All other potential demigods in the trailer still retain their humanoid figures that are both functional and recognizable. So now let's contrast this with the king. The distortion that happens to the king looks neither functional nor recognizable. This form does not emanate power at all. We can see that the limbs attached to the snakes are thin and bony, and it looks like the distortion was not of his choosing. And if you look closely at all the little red things, you can see that it's actually people attached to him. So it looks like he got this power the same as the others. However, it looks like his mutation was much worse. So why do I think this guy is the final boss? Well, if we look at all the lore, there's absolutely no mention of the king whatsoever. And we can see this painting featuring him so prominently. Now to me that gives off the idea that he's away from the kingdom. I don't think all these demigods would be squabbling over territory if there was a king involved. So then where could he be? We know he has the mutation that is a result of being in possession of one of the great runes. However, his mutation looks much worse than the others, perhaps as a result of a greater power than the others. So naturally something that would be more powerful than the shards themselves would be the full remaining Elden ring. So perhaps he's the final guardian of the Elden Ring, but this is just an idea to me. So that's my theory on who I think the final boss is and why I think they edited the snakes out of the trailer. We still have more details to go through, but I'm going to save that for the next video. I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts on this and why you think this was edited out. But anyways, that's going to pretty much do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like on it and subscribe if you're not already, and I'll catch you in the next one.